What is going on YouTube? It is your boy Faithful to God, and I am joined by my friend Abu. And today is the 2-year anniversary of the Psaq Din that was put forward claiming that the Igbos are Israelites. We are going to be critically examining that Psaq Din, and without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my partner Abu. Say hello to the audience.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm coming in from New York, so this is a quick lunchtime discussion on the Igbo Psaq Din.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate all of you who are watching and those of you who will watch in the future. I imagine this will be very interesting for those of you who have been following the conversations with the quote unquote Israelites. But nevertheless, I think this will be very interesting for anybody who finds these conversations and these subjects to be intriguing. But anyways, if you could, Abu, could you give everybody a preface to the discussion at hand, the implications, that kind of thing?
Okay, sure. So if you could you pull up while I'm talking? Could you pull up the PDF of the English version of the Psaq Din? So
Yes.
what we're going to be discussing is there was a ruling 2 years ago on this date on the Hebrew calendar. There was a ruling, and it was unveiled with a certain level of excitement and some interesting reactions by a gentleman, a rabbi known as Yehonatan Elazar-DeMota, and it argued for the Halakhic status of Igbos. It argued that they are properly part of Israel, and it caused quite a sensation in certain circles. And in the 2 years since then, there's been some discussion on that. And so with 2 years of hindsight, we're going to attempt to bring together some of the talking points, some of the bits of information that have come to the fore through discussions on various parts of social media over the last couple of years. And so,
just one moment. I'm pulling it up on my end.
No problem. So mainly, we just want to pull it up just because the first thing we're going to do is I just want to show the date at the end, just for the sake of
yes,
of posterity, as it were. And so because I don't believe it came out on January 22nd, which is today's date on the Gregorian calendar. Yes, here we go. Excellent. If you could scroll all the way to the end. If I'm not mistaken, I think it came out on January 14th, although the news about it started breaking 2 weeks later on the 28th, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever the case, we get the Hebrew calendar date at the end. There's the signature, Yehonatan Elazar-DeMota, and it says the 12th of Shvat, 5782. So that's today's date on the Hebrew calendar. Today is the 12th of Shvat. So it's not the same date on the Gregorian calendar, but it is the same date on the Hebrew calendar. And so we're going to be diving right in, and we're just going to discuss this. We have a little image, a little graphic that'll go over the different sections that we're going to discuss in this video, because there's a lot to discuss. We're going to try to pack a lot in during a quick lunchtime conversation. I myself am at work. I think Faithful might be at work as well. And so we're going to see what we can pack in and, share the information that's come to the fore over the last 2 years, as people have tried to make sense of this.
One moment, let me actually pull it up.
No problem. And so, as I was saying, it caused excitement because, as some have noted, the Igbos, there's a large number of African Americans who descend from Igbos, at least partially, and so therefore it would be significant if the Igbos are considered Israelites under Jewish law, which is how some put it. But so here, as you see on the screen, here are the 5 sections that we're going to discuss in this video. The first section we're going to discuss is we're going to show how the news of the ruling first broke. And then we're also within that section going to discuss what seemed like a red flag. There were these apparent attempts by some to try to control discussions on the ruling, and it was almost immediately after the news came out. Then in the second section, we're going to discuss the scope and authority of pisqey din. Just quick technical note: Psaq Din is the singular. Pisqey Din is the plural, right? So Pisqey Din is like saying Psaq Dins, right? It's the plural. Then in the third section, we're going to discuss the question of Igbo DNA, which is one of the more interesting statements that appears in the ruling. Then in the fourth section, we're going to discuss rabbinic letters sent to the Igbo. There's another very interesting claim in the ruling about these sort of correspondences that are happening in the 19th century between mainstream chief rabbis and the Igbos. It's very interesting. discussing. And then in the fifth section, we're going to discuss the ruling's implication for the halakhic status of Americans who have Igbo DNA, right? Because that's the question. If Igbos are Israelites, then does that mean an American who has some Igbo admixture according to their DNA test, does that mean they're part of Israel as well? That's also a question that we'll be looking at. And so if we can, we're going to jump right into that first section, which is how the news broke. And my esteemed colleague here is going to bring up a clip in a minute. We're going to show
Absolutely.
We're going to show what he's going to bring up is a roughly 3-minute clip, which will show how honestly there was some excitement when the news first broke. So let's see. Hold on one second.
Yeah, just one moment. I'm just pulling it up.
Right. And so, yeah, and while he's pulling that up, we're just basically going to look back at how excited certain folks were when the ruling first came out. And, like I said, it's actually going to be a couple of clips capturing how the news of the ruling was first broken. I think it came out January 14th, but the news, from our perspective, broke on, I think the 28th is when a number of videos started popping up all over social media announcing the ruling.
Yep. Almost there. Just
no problem.
Yep.
And then we'll dive into the other subjects.
Hopefully you can see that. All right, there we go.
I don't see. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong screen. Yes, I can see it. Go ahead.
Right,
so here we
one moment. Let me just.
This will run for a little over 3 minutes.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
What's going on? We got some breaking news, y'all. I'm gonna wait till everybody jump in here. Breaking news. Y'all already see the title of what it is. I have the document in my hand right now. I have the document in my hand, so definitely hit those share buttons. Man, definitely invite, brothers. This is groundbreaking. We have a lot of things going on. There's a lot going on. But I have the document here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I have the document here. It was sent to my phone this morning. I got to read through it. It's about 4 pages long. It has the seal on there. Okay, it has their seal on there, and the religious courts, which we know that everybody respect, the Jewish religious courts. They are pretty much the ones who make the decisions when it comes down to who's a Jew, or in the ancient term, we would say Israelites, especially when we're referring to who we are. But this has been kind of something that's been a long time waiting, and the Sephardics were involved. Okay, the Sephardic Jews were the ones who was involved in making sure, along with the Obadyah Alliance, okay, they were the ones responsible. Dr.
Obadyah Alliance, a Sephardic Jewish organization headed by Dr. Yehonatan Elazar-DeMota, took a step that we have all been wishing, people of goodwill in the house of Israel have all been wishing that people will be courageous enough to take, so that our ancestors and our God, the Holy God of Israel, will be happy with us. They took that step. They constituted Obadyah Alliance, constituted a Bedin, a court, a rabbinical court, which spent months, if not years, quietly studying Igbo history and culture. And after their studies were concluded, they published their reports. According to them, all the existing evidence shows that the Igbo people are descendants of the Israelites. The Igbos are children of the Israelites.
All right. So, I don't know if wanted to note in particular the graphic that was on the screen there, where it said breaking news, Igbos confirmed to be true Israel. So there was a lot of excitement. You saw Will Brown was quite excited. And then just within like a day or two of that, because it quickly ignited a lot of discussion on social media, it reached the platform, the channel known as Berean TV, because Berean, the host of Berean TV, he discusses a lot of Israelite related news. And so one thing he said is, he felt I guess, wasn't sure what to make of it. And so he had said on his show that he was thinking about going to Brooklyn to meet with some Orthodox Jews that he knows to try to discuss it with him to get more insight, right? And what was interesting, and as I said, it seemed like a red flag. The same folks who broke the news of the ruling posted an audio clip of Remy Ilona trying to dissuade Berean from discussing the ruling with anyone outside of those who agreed with it, right? And the audio clip even tried to shame Berean for thinking of going to others for insight, right? And this, like I said, this was only just a few days after the news first broke. So we're going to show that clip in a moment,
Right.
if you will.
Absolutely.
It was interesting how quickly this came out. For me, this was a red flag. And while the clip is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
While he's bringing up the clip, one thing I remember was that on the We Woke Now channel, they declared that Berean had threatened to speak to to rabbis and stuff like that, which I guess we'll discuss that in a moment. But here we'll just play the clip here. But this is Remy Ilona trying to dissuade brother Berean, from speaking to others about the ruling to get more insight.
Hey, brother, the guy you mentioned that is Berean TV, I will tell you what I think, and you may share with him. Tell him that the most important people he should reach out to are the Igbo people represented by Omena and the Defenders, and Obadyah Alliance, and any other group outside these two groups are not important. Their views matter only if they are in alignment with the views of the people that are concerned matters. He's still thinking like somebody who is under colonialism.
Okay, yeah. So
if I speak to that,
yeah, please, share your
it's
thoughts.
interesting that Remy Ilona. So if those of you weren't able to make out what he was saying, just because the audio quality and perhaps his accent, and no offense to the man, but he was saying something like he needs to reach out essentially to them, to him, and to the people who are making the claim, and that he shouldn't reach out to anyone else because he somehow has the mindset of colonialism, which is a bit strange when you think about it. Like for him to be critical, for him to want to examine the assertions, he needs to go to the people making the assertions rather than actually at being objective and trying to figure out what's going on, perhaps figuring out what this whole thing was about. That seems a bit strange to me.
Yeah, it seems like he was saying only talk to people who agree with the ruling. Don't go to people who might say something different, right? Don't go to people who could give you more insight into such things as, for example, where such a ruling, what its scope might be, which is what we're going to get into. So that was interesting. Like I said, for me, that was a red flag, and it seemed. And by the way, I just want to be clear that I'm not pinning this on Rabbi DeMota. The Rabbi DeMota is an academic, clearly, a scholar. I respect him. So this is more for the gentleman who put out that video, who I don't think they checked with DeMota before doing so. That would be my guess, but that would be Will Brown and Kelly Richardson. It seems, and like I said, the We Woke Now channel had accused Berean of threatening them by saying that he was going to speak with others within the Jewish spectrum to get more insight. They literally called it a threat.
This is the same honest Kelly that said that people threaten his family when he made a public video talking about Georgia pews, and then the same video, which was public, was simply examined in light of the claims. But then somehow there was threats against him and his family, right? Which was insane.
Or insults or mocking and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But so it's interesting to see it as a threat. I mean, it's like if I make a claim, I take it for granted that others have the right to check my claim. But unfortunately, some on the internet feel that if you attempt to look into their claim, their response is, why are you making threats?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like somehow the just looking into the subject a little bit more is a quote unquote threat, and they literally use threat in their video title on the We Woke Now channel, which mirrored the clip that we just saw. But nonetheless, right? Sorry, hold on 1 second. So, but with that, I think now we should get into the actual
Absolutely.
salient points, right? So we're going to
Yes.
jump into that second section, which is going to be on the scope and authority of pisqey din. And as I said earlier, pisqey din is just the plural of Psaq Din.
And could you do everybody a favor, because they may not be familiar with the jargon? So Psaq Din and pisqey din, can you explain to them what those terms mean?
Din means judgment, right? So or it could refer to a court, right? Like a Beit Din is literally a house of judgment, but it's a Jewish religious court. So a psak is like, I guess, a small packet of judgment. It's a small judgment, a little legal matter, right? But it's as we're about to discuss, it has a very local sort of scope, right? It only applies to the signatories on a particular ruling. It doesn't, and this is important because some were claiming that, such a ruling automatically sets Jewish law across the Jewish spectrum and maybe even beyond. That's what some were trying to imply, as we're going to see in a little bit, right? So, but I think that's the question that we should ask is, what is the scope and reach of such a ruling, right? Does a psak din, this little bit of judgment, this packet of judgment, does it automatically set Jewish law across the Jewish spectrum, or is it limited to a more local range, right? And when we tried to discuss this with certain people over the last 2 years, some of the people who were excited, some became upset, especially when it was compared to other rulings. So with that in mind, it would be helpful to hear what the author of the ruling himself, Rabbi Yehonatan Elazar-DeMota, what he himself had to say about the scope and authority of these sorts of rulings, right, of pisqey din. So we're about to play a clip from Rabbi DeMota's interview with Garfield Reed from last year. So yeah, go ahead.
What is the scope of Psaq Din within Judaism? Is it obligatory for all Jews to defer to its conclusion, or is it limited to those under the authority of the signatories?
Oh, that's a very good, awesome question. I love that question. So, a Psaq Din, or a legal ruling from Beit Din, is not obligatory for all communities to accept. However, traditionally or historically speaking, when a particular community in one region issues a Psaq Din, that becomes the law for that community.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is then, if someone travels to another community from, let's say community A travels to community B, that Psaq Din doesn't necessarily transfer to that place, because that's not how Jewish law works. So Jewish law, you have the laws in the Talmud, which are stipulated by the national court or the Supreme Court, the High Court of Israel, which we haven't had since the 5th century Common Era. What that means that everything that's in the Talmud and the laws that have been established therein are laws for all Jews, no matter where you're at. But when it comes to a Psaq Din, that's outside of the realm of national law. So it becomes a local ruling. That's what Psaq Din is.
Okay.
All right, excellent. So what's significant there is that Rabbi DeMota agrees with us that because some people tried to, in some of my conversations on social media, when I pointed out that, a Psaq Din does not set Jewish law across the Jewish spectrum, some tried to
No,
I don't want to say any names, but some treated me like I was reacted as though I was, this is just hate or something like that. That like it was inappropriate to be that. So it is helpful that Rabbi DeMota himself agreed, or made clear that that even in his own view, his understanding is that a Psaq Din is limited to those under the authority of the signatories of that particular ruling. And with that in mind, is it okay if we look again at the end of the ruling, if we could pull that up? The PDF of the English version.
Absolutely. Just give me one moment.
No problem. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull up the PDF of the ruling, and then from there we're going to jump to another ruling. And I think this will be helpful, because so the only people that the ruling has authority over are those who are under the authority of the signatories, the people who wrote the particular judgment. This could be a community of various sizes. It could be small, it could be large, and so on. And so I just wanted to look at the end of the ruling to get a sense of the signatories to the ruling, which, by the way, can expand. It's my understanding that the signatories to a ruling can expand, but we're going to look at the
Okay, here we
current.
go.
Yes. Okay. If you could scroll to the bottom to the very end. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. So there's the data we looked at. And now I could be mistaken, but it seems to me that the only signatory at present is Rabbi Yehonatan Elazar-DeMota.
This
So
one right here, correct?
yes. So I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that there's only one signature on this ruling. Now, in past discussions, I, just for the sake of trying to establish just a sort of analogy, I offered up the analogy of the ruling that came out in the 90s from certain Lubavitcher rabbis, which declared the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe to be the Messiah. And so if we could, I'd like to pull up that ruling, that Psaq Din. This is a Psaq Din that's roughly 30 years old. And the reason why I use this is because obviously most people in these discussions are not going to agree with this ruling. And so I think it helps to illustrate that, a ruling doesn't necessarily, it's an example of how a ruling does not establish law across the Jewish spectrum, because obviously there's lots of people who disagree with this ruling. But I'd like to note the number of signatories on it, because when we were discussing this with certain people, they felt that it was a ridiculous analogy, because they felt that this example was an obviously ridiculous. I'm not calling it ridiculous, but others were saying it's an obviously ridiculous Psaq Din. So I'll just wait till when you pull it up, and
Yep,
then
I'm pulling it up right now.
No problem. So this is, as I said, we're going to be pulling up a ruling from the 90s, which declared, here we go. This is a ruling that declared that the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was a rabbi living in Brooklyn who died in the 90s, that he was the Messiah. Now, note that this ruling, while certain people want to wave it off as absurd, note that this ruling has over 200 signatures. And if you could, would it be possible to scroll to the right? I want to look a bit closer at, it's going to be the third, all the way on the right, the third from the top. So yeah, here we go. Yeah, the third signature from the top. If you could scroll in on that, zoom in. If not, it's okay, but let's see.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was trying to talk. I was saying I'm gonna actually let me.
Yeah, you can just hit the plus sign there. You should zoom in.
Let me do it this way. Let me see if I could because I have a bunch of windows open, and let me actually close some of these windows.
No worries.
And of course I wanted to, you said the plus sign again. What was it again?
No, I was going to say that there was a plus sign on the application that you had open, so it would have allowed you to zoom in.
Oh, I got it right now. Yep.
Okay, here we go. So I'll wait for that to come back up. And like I said, I want to look at the signature of these more than 200 signatures. I think it's roughly 240. All the way on the right, there's the third from the bottom. If we could zoom in.
This one right here?
Yes, that one. If we could zoom in on that. So you see your application at the top of the bar has a plus sign there for zooming in?
Yes. Okay, I see right there. Oops.
Maybe one or two. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there
you
it
want
is.
it larger?
No, that's fine. I guess that's fine. So if you just, there you go. That one right, right there in the center. So that says Harav Dovber Lazar, right? And then that's his name, Dovber Lazar. He's also known as Beryl Lazar. And his title is underneath his name so his name is in the bold text, and then his title, it says Rab Rashi, right, which means like a head rabbi or principal rabbi, de Medinat Rusia, of the state of Russia. This is the chief rabbi over all of Russia. He's one of the 200 signatories to this Psaq Din, this ruling on a rabbi who lived and died in Brooklyn in the 90s, being
and this
Messiah.
if you could this, so people can see the compare and contrast. So this Psaq Din was for,
what do you mean for? It was mainly within the scope of Lubavitch, of Hasidic Jews within the Chabad Lubavitch sect.
And they were signing this to say that the chief rabbi, the seventh Rebbe or lead head rabbi of the Lubavitch sect, was the Messiah, the long-awaited Jewish king Messiah. So that's what they were claiming. And so the reason why we cite this example is because obviously you and I disagree with this Psaq Din, but not only us. I mean, we're Christians, so some might say, who cares what you think? But also many, many, many Jews disagree with this Psaq Din as well. And so the only point of the example was to say that it's to provide an analogy of how a Psaq Din can have force within a specific community and then not be incumbent or obligatory upon, people are not obliged to defer to it outside of that community. Correct.
Many Jews can disagree with it. And so when that example was brought up, it was treated as just obviously absurd. But the thing is, there were a large number of rabbis by comparison who signed that. So it's just to sort of establish that how localized a pisqey din can be. So I hope
and also, if possible, it also shows that for that specific Psaq Din, there were 200 signatures, including the head rabbi of the whole
of Russia,
country,
of the Russian Federation,
yeah. Now, by contrast, and no disrespect to Rabbi DeMota, this is not meant to be some sort of dunk on him or anything like that.
Right,
but
we both respect him. I actually am a fan of DeMota, and I think he's a very interesting scholar. I'm sorry,
but just to give those who may be unfamiliar, like our interesting friend, you know who I'm referring to.
Lots. I mean, for anyone who's grappling with
our
this
interesting friend whose name begins with a T, him.
But it could extend to anyone. I mean, it doesn't have to be to any one person.
Yeah, and also for Will Brown and Honest Kelly, or was it? No, it's Honest Will and Honest
Well, they're
Kelly.
both honest gentlemen, perhaps.
For them to understand that, and also maybe for others who may be unfamiliar, the Psaq Din that DeMota put forward would only be binding on those who have him, meaning DeMota, as an authority, right? It wouldn't be binding on other Jews.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And I just wanted to note the signatures because, like I said, some said, well, that's obviously just ridiculous. Well, it's not. How do we define fringe? I mean, a Psaq Din with 200 signatures, including one from the chief rabbi of Russia. That's interesting. If it's fringe, okay, fine. But then, yeah, it raises the question: do we have a consistent standard for quote unquote fringe?
If one is going to consider that fringe, which I think you and I would say we would fully disagree with that Psaq Din, then the same could be true for any Psaq Din, right? The Psaq Din,
neither is binding on us clearly.
Exactly.
Or those outside of the community that it is binding upon. So I'd sum it up like this. I'd say, look, even a ruling with signatures of over 200 rabbis does not set Jewish law beyond those under the signatories. And likewise, a Psaq Din with only one signature would not extend beyond those under the authority of that one signatory.
Correct.
And, we don't say that with any intended disrespect towards Rabbi DeMota, but it's just what we established. But with that, I think we should jump to the third section, which is going to be on Igbo DNA, right? We're going to get into a couple of significant claims which were made in the ruling. Like now we're going to, so if you could, you'll pull up the ruling, and we're going to look at two different claims. First, this one is going to pertain to Y-DNA, and then in our next section, we're going to look at another claim that pertains to, if I recall correctly, the correspondences between rabbis. But here we're going to look at the.
So it was on what page was it again?
So the last paragraph of page 1, it'll begin genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men. Yep.
At the top?
Yeah, so it'll be at the bottom of page 1. There it is in the answer. There you go. Okay, so go down. Yep, right there. Now you notice about 4 lines down, it begins genetic studies of the Y chromosome.
Wait, say that one more time.
Right,
I'm sorry.
you had it on the screen right there. Go up just a couple of lines right there. Stop right there.
Right here?
So right in the middle of that paragraph, right in the middle, it says genetic studies of the Y chromosome. You want me to read it? I can read it.
Yeah, I got it. I got it right here. It says genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men demonstrate that they originated in the Levant Basin, sharing genetic links with Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews alike. While there is yet an exhaustive academic genetic study of the Igbos, the data of the majority of those who have reported their autosomal and Y chromosome DNA supports that their ancestors migrated from the Levant Basin into East Africa and then settled in West Africa.
Right. All right. Thank you very much. So do you have anything on that? Or
I think that I find that claim wanting, of course, but yes, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I'd say it's an interesting statement. Like, if that's true, I think it would be within the circles that we move in. That would be one of the more significant statements within the ruling, right? But unfortunately, as you alluded to, the Psaq Din doesn't, at least the English version, doesn't reference any source which one might consult for more information. Now, Rabbi DeMota in the Hebrew version references Remy Ilona, and also I had wrote to him on Twitter, and he had also referenced Remy Ilona, right? So in short, he was directing the genetic questions to Remy Ilona. And this is relevant because Garfield Reed on the Brother Garfield podcast asked Remy about precisely that in an interview that they did last year. So we're going to play a clip. If you can pull up that clip, we're going to play a clip of where Garfield asks Remy Ilona about the Y DNA of Igbos. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so with this, keep in mind that the ruling by DeMota, by the Obadyah Alliance, makes this fascinating statement about the Y DNA of Igbos and the connections to the Y DNA of mainstream Jews and connections to the Levant. But for a reference, the Hebrew version of the Psaq Din, and also, you know, in Correspondences, it, you know, he directs that to Remy Ilona. So then obviously the conversation should be brought to Remy Ilona. That's where we come to this clip.
Obadyah Alliance's ruling on the Igbo stated that the Igbo have Y chromosomes, which reveal links with Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews. When asked about the statement, Rabbi DeMota directed those interested to you. Can you elaborate on the Y DNA connection between Igbos and mainstream Jewish populations?
Much of my work has been based on culture, religion, and history. I have only used DNA to support what I just mentioned. I think the best person to look at the issue of the relationship between the Igbo DNA and the Jewish DNA would be the chairman of Obadyah Alliance, who has spent more time studying DNA and how it works. My interest in DNA was only to find if Igbo people's DNA matched the DNA of people who are living in the land of Israel, and it matched. And I did not go beyond that.
Okay, because he's saying to come to you. He's saying we should go to you. That's what the person who gave me the question is saying. That's why they're asking.
Okay, so if we can just recap really quickly, when asked about the ruling's genetic claims, or, you know, even when you look at the sources in the Hebrew version of the Psaq Din, Rabbi DeMota directed that to Remy Ilona, to one of his works. And, you know, however, when Remy Ilona was asked about these statements, he directed it back to Rabbi DeMota, you know. And at this point, I would have to say that one of the more significant claims, seemingly significant claims within the ruling, seems at this point to lack sufficient support, right? And would at the very least require more discussion. That's what I would say. It needs more support, more information, more discussion. But at this point, it seems, as you said, it seems to lack support at present. And it seems to have been reached, with all due respect to Rabbi DeMota, it seems that that particular part of the text was reached under the influence of Remy Ilona. And I think that's an important point. You know, Rabbi DeMota has written a very interesting piece. I think it's a great piece. It references a lot of rabbinic literature in a very interesting way. But there are certain points where at least I got the impression that you could see where it's under the influence of Remy Ilona and.
You know, it's almost like they're playing a game of pass the ball, right? You know, no disrespect to DeMota, but just in terms of the claim is asserted, but when obviously the claim is you know, the need to verify the claim is not there in the actual ruling. Rather, DeMota seems to point towards this gentleman, Remy Ilona, and then Remy Ilona then in turn, when he's asked about it, he says, well, now you need to go to the Obadyah Alliance. And then, but then when you go to the Obadyah Alliance, they're saying go to Remy Ilona. So it's like back and forth, just as Garfield said in the live chat. Now,
I don't think it was intentional. Like, I think probably.
Yeah, I don't think it was intentional either. I don't want anyone to think that we're trying to, again, we're not trying to dunk on DeMota, but it's just,
I think he saw Remy Ilona make allusions to the DNA, and therefore he trusted Remy on that without really looking deeply into what Remy was alluding to. And then I think when we followed that, and you know, and when Garfield brought the question to Remy Ilona, and you know, it was not intended as a gotcha, but it apparently caught him off guard, and so not knowing that DeMota was directing it to him, he just directed it back to DeMota. But I don't think it was intentional the way it came out. But yeah, I think Remy Ilona, you know, the Yap Gang, with all due respect to Remy Ilona, the Yap Gang has done quite a few videos on his works, and he's you know, we're all novices, but I would say he's rather unfamiliar with DNA, and therefore he's not a source of information on DNA, and so therefore, it's not the best idea to cite him as a source, on these sorts of questions. And so I think that's that's where I think the impression I get is that DeMota merely trusted Remy's claims on this, but Remy himself was not entirely informed on the subject, and there was a disconnect. By the way, if I could say
Right.
something really quickly, because I know that
Absolutely.
to some this will seem like we're attacking DeMota, I would ask that this be understood within the context of academia. If anyone were to go over my writings or Faithful's writings with a fine-tooth comb, I think they would find things to disagree with, perhaps errors, perhaps
Right.
blind spots, perhaps things that we didn't properly source. It can happen anywhere to anyone. It's part of academia, so it should not be taken as a disrespect. We all have intellectual heroes that we also disagree with. I know I was telling Faithful my intellectual heroes are, for example, William Lane Craig, but of course I disagree with him on a number of things. And
As do I.
Yep. And also I studied formal logic. That was what I studied when I was in college. And so one of my intellectual heroes was Bertrand Russell. And obviously I have huge disagreements with Bertrand Russell in other areas, in other philosophical areas. So I just want to make clear that you can have disagreements even with your intellectual heroes, and therefore academic disagreements, and pointing out apparent failures to cite information or apparent blind spots should not be taken as disrespect. It's a part of academia.
Right. Yep. All right.
So, but
And
with that, go ahead. I'm sorry. You wanted to say something?
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we should jump to the fourth section, which is the topic of Rabbinic and Igbo correspondences, right? Which is, I think this is going to be the longest section of the discussion. Because there's aside from the Y-DNA claim, there's one other rather interesting statement in the ruling, and it's regarding what's apparently depicted as past rabbinic recognition of Igbos. And if you could pull up the ruling, it comes up on page 2 of the English
Just give me a
text.
second.
Yeah, no problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 2 of the English version of the ruling, right?
Yep, I'm pulling it up now, and it should be on the screen.
Yep, let's see. I forget.
Yeah, this is page 2. Yep, this is
Yep,
page 2.
let me
Right here.
see. Forgive me. The presence. Here we go. It should be, that one. The presence of Israelites along the Niger River. If you just read just that paragraph.
Yeah, I'll read it right now. It says the presence of Israelites along the Niger River had been known by Jewish authorities in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Suriname. Rabbinic letters addressed to the Igbos by chief rabbis Dr. Solomon Herschel Lewin, David Medola, and the Gaon of Vilna. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, support the idea that there was contact between European Jewish communities and Igbo communities. All of the correspondence from the aforementioned rabbinic authorities addressed the Igbos as, quote, brethren of the children of Israel, end quote. Accordingly, there is no doubt of their origin, nor of their halakhic status as Israelites.
So as far as I'm concerned, that is a thunderous claim. He's saying that basically there were chief rabbis writing to the Igbos. For example, Meldola lived in the 19th century. So he's basically saying 19th century lead rabbis, not some small-time rabbi, but chief rabbis in certain communities were writing letters to the Igbos and addressing them as brothers and children of Israel. That's a rather significant claim, right? It's at very least an interesting one, and some might consider it extraordinary. So at this point, if one is interested in this claim, they should ask the question, where can they see these correspondences? And last August, Rabbi DeMota posted a relevant text on Facebook. So if we could show his Facebook post, this will be from I believe August 13th of last year, from last summer.
Yep, just give me a moment.
No problem.
One moment. Keep going.
Okay, so basically what we're going to do is Rabbi DeMota is going to show one of the correspondences, which, according to him, addresses the Igbos. This is a letter from rabbis in Europe sent in the 19th century to Igbos, addressing them as brethren, as brothers, and as children of Israel. So that's a significant claim, and one wishes the English text did not really didn't cite a source for that. The Hebrew text did. It referenced Remy Ilona again, and it referenced Daniel Leese, and we'll get into those sources. But he posted the relevant letter, which we're going to show in a moment. He posted it in a Facebook post last summer, so that's what's about to get pulled up here in a moment.
Yep, just one moment. By the way, you can hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, just give me one moment. I'm
No
pulling it up.
problem. While you're doing that, I'm going to take a peek at the live chat. Let's see. I see Brother Garfield's in there.
Okay, here we go. Just one moment. I'm just trying to I'm trying to get it to load, and for some reason it is not loading. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, all right, here we go. All right.
Excellent. So it should be a
and,
post by DeMota from August 13th.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got it in front of me, but it's yep. Now I am gonna share my screen. I'm just trying to find my browser and the StreamYard. There we go. And I will be sharing the screen momentarily. Here we go. Here we is it this? Oh no, man. Let me see. I just had it right in front of me. Where is that screen now? I can't find the screen. Just one moment.
No problem.
And while we're doing that, just if you could reiterate that point one more time for the
Yeah.
audience.
So again, among the two significant claims, we already looked at the first one. Among the two, what for me are the most significant claims of the ruling, one was about the Y DNA of Igbos, and then the second one was about these 19th century rabbis, some of them even chief rabbis, writing to the Igbos and addressing them as Israelites and so forth. So that is significant. If you want, I could attempt to.
No, I have it right here. I have it right
Okay.
here. It's just for some reason I cannot. Oh, it's down here. That's why. Oh goodness, never mind.
No worries, no worries. So this is, because some wanted to see these, many were interested in seeing these correspondences that were referenced by the ruling, and so DeMota finally.
Yeah, I couldn't find it for some reason. It's like I was like, where is it? And it's like right in front of me. It's like, oh, okay, okay, okay. Now it's not. All right, let's see. All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So he says a letter written by Hacham David de Rafael Meldola of London on the 23rd of Nisan, 5601, corresponding to the year 1841 on the Gregorian calendar. It's a letter he wrote to the Igbos. They are addressed as brothers, children of Israel. Now, if you could go to the comment section, you'll notice some people are pointing out the obvious, which is that the letter doesn't actually mention the Igbos. Some point that out. I don't know if you'll see that there. Maybe you could hit all. But whatever the case, actually, could you show the image that I sent where we put the Hebrew text side by side with the?
We is this one right here?
No, that's me writing to Garfield when he had first tagged me in it. So that's why I knew about this. But others were pointing out.
Here it is right here. Yeah. You see it?
Yes.
There's nothing in this correspondence that's specific to the Igbo community, or am I missing something? Would you like me to expand this so people can?
Yeah, sure. If you could, maybe you'll see somebody else mentioning that.
And it says contextualization is key. This letter was sent with another one to the people along the Niger River with Captain Simpson from London. I don't give all the clues. Historians make up history all the time. They add to the historiography with their interpretations. As soon as anyone interprets documents in reference to African Jews, people flip.
Well, I don't know about that last part, but I'm actually glad you showed that comment because I actually didn't see that beforehand. It's interesting. So he is sort of conceding, and we'll see that Remy Ilona concedes that as well, that the Igbos are not actually mentioned in this letter. So I sent you an image. Could we pull up the image that's in the skeleton, so that way people could see the English text of it side by side, because he mentioned William Simpson, and we're going to discuss that. I appreciate that comment because that's really at the center of the discussion here.
Absolutely.
So,
just give me 1 second. Let me just pull it
up.
No
problem.
All right.
And while you're doing that.
And so again, so we can frame it for the audience.
Yeah, if I'll discuss it while you're getting that. So first, let me just say that I don't know if people saw it; they can go back. But the source, you could see the source in the top right corner of the image that DeMota posted. Right, when you look at the top right corner of the image that Rabbi DeMota posted, you'll see the title "Israel's Odyssey in Deep Africa." Right, and that's actually one of Remy Ilona's books. So Rabbi DeMota was referencing a book by Remy Ilona in that post. Right, and we're going to come back to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Second, more significantly, as we mentioned, the letter never mentions Igbos, not even once, right? We're told that it's written to the Igbos, but there's nothing in the text that's stating such, right? There's no indication in the text itself that the letter is to Igbo. So I'm just waiting for you to pull this image up, the full letter. It's titled fullletter.jpg.
Full letter, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yep. And so once we come that up, and we're just going to put it on the screen for a second, and people who want to see it, they can pause it once it's fully on the screen. Those who are interested can pause it and read over it. And we're also going to list the source in the description. It's from William Simpson's work, which is okay. Here we go. If you could just leave that on the screen, like I said, it's William Simpson's 1843 book. Actually, could you scroll back? Just scroll out. Yeah, so that way, there you go. So all the text is on the screen. Just leave it there because that way interested parties they can pause the video and read over the English text or look at the Hebrew text. And we also list the source at the bottom. It's William Simpson's book from 1843 titled "A Private Journal Kept During the Niger Expedition." Specifically, it's on pages 130 to 131. And we'll put a link later on after the show goes off air. We'll put a link in the video description to all our sources. So anyone who's interested can look into this. But for those who look over this text, they'll see. I don't know if you want to read it, but it never mentions the Igbos. That's the salient point.
Yeah. Would you like for me to read it?
I don't. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just a general sort of to whom it may concern style letter, but clearly,
I'll just scrolling on it and then slowly pan through it like this so people can see it for
all right.
themselves.
So as you do
They
that,
can
right?
pause the video. Yep, there it is.
So here's the question. How does one arrive at the conclusion that it's addressed to Igbos? Well, we saw DeMota's comment, right? And also note that DeMota was using one of Remy Ilona's books. And later that same day, just a number of hours later, that same day, August 13th, Remy himself touched on his source for that letter. So if you could you show the Facebook post that we have
Yes,
that came out no problem. So this is Remy Ilona posting just a few hours later. Rabbi DeMota posted in the morning and Remy Ilona posted in the afternoon. Yes, this is it. So this was Remy Ilona. He's right. He says here, I could see Moshe saying he didn't see the full info. So I went into work, but so he's basically showing his sources, right? So Remy's own source is a book by Daniel Leese, which is titled Jewish Identity Among the Igbo of Nigeria. Unfortunately, the pictures he posted were rotated somewhat awkwardly, but in a moment, we're going to take a closer look at one of those pictures, right? Mainly the second image. But before we do, let's look at just one more Facebook post that Remy put up 2 days later, because this is going to be significant. So we were just looking at two Facebook posts, one by DeMota and one by Remy on the both of them on the 13th of August of last year. Now we're going to pull up one from the 15th of August of last year. And like I said, all of these will be linked to in the video description after the show goes off air. Okay. So if we could just do that paragraph that said, but there's now a major controversy. Could you read that? I'm having trouble seeing it on my screen.
Yeah, where it says there's now a major controversy.
Yeah, third paragraph. But there's now a major.
It says but there's now major controversy online over the letter by London-based rabbis addressed to our brothers on the banks of the Niger River. "Quote unquote" experts are already saying that it didn't mention Igbos by name. It didn't mention Igbos by name, but Igbos can demonstrate that they mentioned in writing that they circumcised boys at 8th day over 200 years ago, and that they lived on the banks of the Niger in 1841. And meanwhile, these quote unquote experts cannot mention the name of one of the ethnic groups that live on the banks of the Nigeria. Challenge them to get one person from those imagined groups to demonstrate their nation have clear Israelite traditions, and be sure they will sneak away. Did those other people the letter could have been addressed to dissolve like salt?
Okay, thank you. So let's make clear what's happening here. Remy basically conceded that the relevant letter, which is stated that the letter was depicted as being addressed to the Igbos, but now he's conceding that the letter does not mention Igbos. But his argument is that the letter was addressed to a specific people, and that people must be the Igbo, right? He's challenging people. You saw he was challenging people. He's basically arguing that the letter is addressed to some Jewish group on the Niger River. So Remy is asking rhetorically, if that's not addressed to the Igbo, then which group was it addressed to, right? So now to understand what's going on here, we need to look at the page that Remy showed from Daniel Leese's book. So could we do that? Can we show the Daniel Leese page 26?
Yep, pulling it up in a moment. Here we go.
No problem.
Yep.
So while he's pulling that up, to give the background to this, right? The letter that we saw, and also Rabbi DeMota in that Facebook comment. Thank you. So as I said, we're going to give the background to this. Also, Rabbi DeMota gave a bit of the background to this. The letter that we saw was given to a British explorer named William Simpson. And William Simpson traveled along the Niger River in the 1800s. And he had 2 letters given to him, right? First, it was the letter that we saw, that longer letter. And then he had a second letter explaining who he himself was. And in Daniel Leese's English translation of the letter, which is on the screen, you see we highlighted, forgive me, you see that we highlighted a portion which refers to, quote, the nation situated on the river Niger, end quote. The nation, right? The way that English translation reads, it gives the impression that Simpson was sent with these letters to look for a specific nation, right? Isn't that the impression that we get from that? And I'm pretty sure that's the reasoning. That's
Can I do
behind...
something real quick?
Sure,
Just momentarily, if I could. I just want to zoom in so everybody, because they may not be able to see the text clearly. There is the red underline.
Right. So this is the letter, the second letter that DeMota referenced, right? So basically, you have the main letter, which is supposed to be the Igbos, right? And that's given to this guy William Simpson. And then there's a second letter, which is describing Simpson. So you have a letter for Jews and then a second letter describing Simpson, right? And this is that second letter, the letter introducing Simpson. And in this particular English translation, it makes this reference to the nation, singular, which is situated on the river Niger, right? Now, here's the thing. That English text is a translation of a letter which was written in Hebrew. Daniel Leese also provided the Hebrew text, and so too does William Simpson himself in that 1843 work that we mentioned, titled "A Private Journal Kept During the Niger
Sharing that in a moment.
Yes. So Simpson is actually Daniel Leese's source. So if we could look at the thank you so much. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So this is what could we scroll up first? So this is the image that Remy Ilona shared, and we're just highlighting just one portion, right? So there's the Hebrew text, which we're going to get into in a moment. And then if you could scroll down, Daniel Leese gives his source right there, which we highlighted, and it's William Simpson. So I want to make this clear. Rabbi DeMota's source was primarily Remy Ilona. Remy Ilona's source was Daniel Leese, and Daniel Leese's source was William Simpson, right? So with that, could we show, there's an image called Simpson intro.
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
No problem.
Here we go.
So we're going to look at the Hebrew text now. Bear with me 1 second.
Yep, there it is.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my own device. Okay, perfect. So I guess I'll just go through the Hebrew text really quickly, at least the relevant parts. I'll start at the top. But mainly, the significant part is the part that's underlined in red, right? That's the part that got translated as having a reference to the nation, right? So at the top, it says, Ha'af umnan shehaholech besefinat wilberfars. Right? That means something like, ha'af umnan means like verily or something like that. So verily, the one who travels in the ship Wilberforce is not from the children of our nation, right? Amenu means, he's not from the children of our nation. Then it continues. It says, Weshemo, William Simpson. His name is William Simpson. Hu haholech barashut hamalka. He is traveling with the permission of the queen. And then we get to that part that's underlined in red, right? The highlighted portion. And it says, Yarala Nahar Negar. Lachkor welidrosh ma yimtza shema, right? He penetrated to the river Niger to search and to study what might be found there. Now, I wanted to point this out to stress this point. The actual letter does not mention any specific nation, right? Right. So if we could show the image, Simpson Lease compare.
Yep.
So again, just as we set this up, because I know this is a bit convoluted or a bit difficult to follow. Rabbi DeMota's source was Remy Ilona. Remy Ilona's source was Daniel Leese. Daniel Leese's source was William Simpson. So now what we're going to do is we're going to compare Simpson's English translation, the English translation of that letter, which appeared in Simpson's work, and the English. Oh no, not this one. Not this one. It should be Simpson Lease compare. Do you have that?
Yes. My apologies.
We'll get the one we just showed. We're going to get to that in a second, because that's also very, very relevant.
Right.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to compare the English translation of that introductory letter, the letter that's describing William Simpson, and we're going to compare the English translation that appeared in Simpson's work with the English translation that appeared in Daniel Leese's work.
Correct. Give me 1 second.
No problem.
Yep. Here he is. I believe this is it.
Yes, perfect. Okay. So when you compare these two English translations, right, they're nearly identical, right? The main difference is that Simpson's translation refers to the river as the Tigris, while Lisa's book refers to it as the Niger River. And then the one other difference is the part that we have underlined in both, right? Which is that Lise has nation singular, while Simpson has nations plural. Now, again, as we saw a moment ago, the Hebrew text does not mention a nation or nations on the river, right? It seems that Simpson's letter put the word nations in as part of a paraphrase, right? And then Lisa's text, largely copying Simpson's text, may have had a typo, accidentally putting nation in the singular. It missed the S. It put nation singular rather than nations plural.
Right.
And then from there, Remy built his reasoning off of Lisa's text, off of Daniel Lisa's text, and assumed that Simpson was sent to a specific single nation, right? That Simpson was sent with these letters with a specific nation in mind, right? A line of thought that then in turn influenced Rabbi DeMota. Because if you start with this premise that he was sent with these letters from the rabbi to meet a very specific nation, they already had the specific nation in mind, and then that's where Remy Ilona's question comes in. Well, which nation is that, right? Which people is that if it's not the Igbo? With that in mind, then we need to see how Simpson's own book explained the letters, right? Because, and if you show the image, it's a Simpson-P-X, because this is going to be from page 10 of Simpson's work. Because we're going to see how. So as we covered, first off, despite how the English translations read, there was no reference to a specific nation in the Hebrew text of the actual letter. All right, thank you very much. So this is from, as you see up in the top left corner, it's Roman numeral 10. It's in the introduction of Simpson's work, right? And what we see here in the underlined portions is that Simpson was provided with the letters from the rabbis in case he came across any Jews during his travels in Africa. Do you want to read through it, or?
Yeah, give me one moment. Let me actually here we go. I am going to read right
Start
now.
where
And
it
it
says
says,
he was provided by two.
yeah. He was provided by two chief rabbis in London with letters commendatory to their brethren, in case it should be found that in the providence of God, towards that remarkable people, any portion of them were located in the interior of Africa.
Thank you. Okay, so that's what, as I was saying, right? The letters were from those rabbis were given to Simpson just in case he came across any specific, any Jews in his travels in Africa, right? The letters were not given to Simpson with a specific group in mind. That's a salient point. Rather, they were given to him just in case he came across a Jewish community. And that is why no specific group is mentioned. The letters which were given to him did not mention Igbos or any other group because they didn't have any specific group in mind. They were given to him just in case he encountered Jews during his travels, right? Because obviously by then I'm sure they've heard stories that there may have been Jews in Africa, because there's Jews everywhere in the world and people are constantly looking for Jewish communities, especially if you have an interest in that kind of subject. So it was at least possible that he might run into Jewish groups, but no group was in mind, right? The letters were given to him just in case. So the letters were not addressed to specifically Igbos. There is zero evidence that the authors of those letters had specifically Igbos in mind, and therefore the claim that the rabbi sent those letters to specifically Igbos, addressing them as brothers and children of Israel, that seems mistaken. It seems like an interpretation
Right.
which is not justified, and it seems to have been made under the influence of Remy Ilona, and Remy Ilona seems to have reached his conclusion from reading what might be described as a typo in Daniel Lisa's book, and also a paraphrase of the Hebrew text.
Yeah. Right. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, with
I know that was a bit long-winded, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but that was great. And now with that, I believe we're going to section 5.
Yes, the final section, which is on the Halakhic status of Americans with Igbo DNA. Right. And so in the interest of time, you're right. Yeah, let's jump to that final section, because I know a lot of those who are listening at lunch have to get back to work. I myself will have to get back to work soon.
Yep.
So right. So what we're going to get into here in this final section is what are the implications, what implications a ruling might have for the Halakhic status of Americans who might get a reference or result, to Igbo admixture in their DNA tests, right? You look at your results in the DNA test, and let's say it says you're this percentage Igbo, like what does that mean then if you're someone who holds to the Obadyah Alliance's ruling? So if you could you pull up a post by this is a YouTube community post by our friend the good doctor Kelly
Yeah, the
Richardson,
good doctor.
the We Woke Now channel. Yeah.
Yeah.
He put this up back in October of 2022, I believe. Yeah. So
Good doctor in air quotes.
yes, because he is one of multiple people who are insinuating. There we go. Yes, if you could expand the text, and you want to read this, because basically he was one of multiple people who were saying that this ruling automatically gives you Jewish status. You know, you're recognized. And yeah, but go ahead if you want to read through this.
I'm gonna try to not to do it in his voice. Like, if you have, all right. Anyways,
yeah, let's read it straight.
If you have done your DNA on 23andMe and you see Igbo in your results, or if you see Igbo, Lemba, Yoruba, and other groups who have been confirmed to be connected to Israel, according to the legal system in this country, you are Jewish. The Obadyah Alliance just recently confirmed the Igbo to be descendants of Israel. It's time for us to put pressure on the judicial system to take action against those who are in violation of crossing the line of the of the hate crimes, all in the name of Christianity. Okay. So-called Christian groups have taken biblical transliterated labels such as Israelite and Hebrew Israelite and used them in the order of slander, even though you have Hebrew Israelite groups that use those terms for themselves. But, you know, we'll just ignore that. Lastly, you don't have to have a DNA test to be included. If you have been subjected to any ridicule, such as harassment, intimidation, and etc., email me. And he gives
and then he gives his email, and he gives what he claims is
hate
and then
crime laws. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then so you know what's oh man, there's so much to say there, right? So he was one of multiple people who were taking this position that, you know, if you have Igbo DNA, then you're automatically recognized as part of Israel under Jewish law, right? And, you know, in that YouTube community post by the good doctor over at the We Woke Now channel from back in October, you know, he tries to declare like certain legal implications to the ruling. Like he apparently believes, you know, he treats criticism of his positions as like hate crimes. And he apparently believes that he should have the power to silence his critics if he got Igbo DNA, because, you know, there's a ruling that says the Igbos are Israelites. So now isn't he a Jew under the Jewish law? Isn't that what it? Hold on one second.
Yeah. So apparently, this now gives him, apparently because of his misunderstanding of, you know, Psaq Din, he now assumes that he's a Jewish by.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
By the way, can you hear me okay? Is there?
Yes, you're loud and clear. Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I have a call coming in. But all right, so this raises, it raises a question. Does the ruling imply that one who has Igbo DNA should be automatically considered halakhically Jewish, right? That's an interesting question. And interestingly, Garfield Reed posed precisely that question to the ruling's author, to Rabbi DeMota. So if we could you pull up the fifth and final clip, and so we could listen to what DeMota had to say on this matter?
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go.
Can those in the African diaspora in the Americas who have Igbo DNA automatically consider themselves halakhically Jewish? Or would you say some of them still need to undergo a conversion process to fully join the people of Israel?
This is an excellent question, and this is a question that I am considering and asking myself as well. And that's the biggest question that when I look at this case and I take distance and I say, okay, if someone is a descendant, 100% sure, being a descendant of Igbos, basing and working from the premise that they are Israelites, can they be automatically Israelites? I will have to say no. That's my ruling. The Omanana elders, they will differ from my ruling, but I'm speaking from the point of view of Jewish law. I'm speaking from the point of view of Jewish law. So from this point of view, this person would have to convert. It cannot be automatic.
Halakhic.
All right, thank you.
That I when I look at this case and I take distance and I say, okay, if someone is a descendant, 100% sure, being a descendant of Igbos, basing and working from the premise that they are Israelites, can they be automatically Israelites? I will have to say no. That's my ruling. The Omanana elders, they will differ from my ruling, but I'm speaking from the point of view of Jewish law.
Thank you. Okay. So, you know,
Just wanted to add emphasis on that point.
Thank you. Yes. So even according to the author of the ruling himself, merely having Igbo DNA does not automatically result in someone being recognized as part of Israel under Jewish law, not even within a community that holds to the ruling, right? Now, some might find that confusing or even scandalous. So I want to offer a quick analogy. Having Ashkenazi DNA or Sephardic DNA does not automatically make one, recognized as a Jew under Jewish law, right? For example, suppose we have a person who had 3 grandparents who were Ashkenazi Jews or Sephardic Jews, right? But then also suppose that his maternal grandmother and so too his mother were not Jewish, right? That person would not be recognized as a Jew under Jewish law, even though they might get a genetic test that might say they're upwards of 75% Ashkenazi, right? For these tests that give Ashkenazi results. So it's not like Rabbi DeMota is being unfair. He's working within the logic of Jewish law, that simply having DNA that connects with the community that's considered Jewish doesn't mean you're halakhically Jewish. It doesn't mean the ruling automatically covers you. Yeah.
Correct. All right, let me stop.
So if we could close it up, we could put the summary on the screen, and then
Absolutely.
and then you'll share your thoughts, and I guess we'll wrap it up after that.
All right, here we go. Some of you are getting the inside jokes. Some of you are getting. All right. You want me to read everything?
Yes, please. Yeah. So this is our summary recap.
Okay, so this is the summary. When the news of the ruling first broke, it was presented by some with considerable excitement. But curiously, certain folks like Remy, Ilona, Will Brown, and Kelly Richardson seemed to want to control the conversation and dissuade others from investigating further the matter by discussing it with anyone outside of those who affirmed the ruling. Number 2, a Psaq Din does not set the Jewish law across the Jewish spectrum. Rather, it is a local ruling, only having force over those under the authority of its signatories. The Igbo Psaq Din seems to only have one signatory, that being Rabbi DeMota. Number 3, the ruling makes reference to the Y DNA of Igbos, but the statement has yet to be supported by a relevant genetic study. One gets the impression that such was written under the influence of Remy Ilona rather than a genetic study. But if possible, further information is invited. Number 4, the ruling makes reference to letters which rabbis sent to Igbos addressing them as children of Israel. But upon closer inspection, the letters were not addressed to Igbos. Rather, Remy Ilona wrongly assumed they were, and the ruling was influenced by Ilona's assumption. And number 5, the ruling itself does not imply that anyone with Igbo DNA should be considered part of Israel. All right?
Yep. All right. You want to share your thoughts as we close it out?
Certainly. I find it interesting that this kind of thing is happening, and and for the record, I want us to be on record about this, that this isn't an attack on DeMota. I do think that DeMota is working within sincerity from his end. I think that he really, I think he's simply trying to approach this as a scholar and a rabbi. But at the same time, I think that I would say that Remy Ilona, I don't think that he's necessarily trying to be nefarious. I just think that he has a misunderstanding of what he's looking at. And I think both sides are unfortunately, because of this misunderstanding, the Psaq Din itself was presented in such a way where the 2 strongest points actually end up, falling apart when examined critically.
Or they made leaps in logic that question how justified they are. Yeah, that's at least my perspective.
Yeah, and I think that in and of itself should lead one to be skeptical, I would say. And I think that if either gentleman is sincere, I think that they should revise the Psaq Din. Perhaps I would, if I were them, I would walk it back and try to present something more substantial if possible, because I think that what they presented is clearly it's lacking. It is certainly lacking. So those are my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, well, at the very least, I would invite further discussion. You know, I hope that this sparks further discussion and that we get more commentary from Rabbi DeMota or from Remy Ilona or from anyone else who's interested. Right? The conversation can continue, but thus far we wanted to offer the different thoughts about what's come up in discussions over the last 2 years. And like we said, we're sharing this on the second anniversary of the release of the ruling, at least according to the Hebrew calendar. And I guess that's it.
Yep, certainly is. Well, on that note, I hope all of you have enjoyed this live stream. I'm going to try to do these a little more frequently. In the next few days, there will be several interesting videos that will certainly pique the interest of other folks. I won't give it away. I want to surprise some of you. And I want to thank Abu for coming on through. Thank you so much, as always, Abu, for sharing your knowledge. And also, I think this is important because I think that we should all be intellectually honest. And of course, this is not only directed at the opposing side, but also ourselves. And so I always appreciate you for your intellectual honesty, your integrity. And yeah, man, let's do this again another time. And on that note, I appreciate all of you in the live chat. And we are going to end the stream here. God bless you all. I hope this has edified someone out there. And until next time, take care. God bless.
God bless.